Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. So as you know, I've been having some trouble with Brutus in the last week here. Brutus has killed off two of my hardcore characters, and I actually believe it's the only thing that's actually killed me on hardcore when I was actually trying to stay alive. So on a different side note, I want to introduce you guys to one of my more unique characters. I've made a lot of characters. I've tried a lot of different things in this game, but I think the only truly unique character compared to what other people have thought of is this one. I showed this off on stream a couple of days ago, and I did so again last night, just so you guys can get a pretty good idea about what is possible in Path of Exile. So just a quick overview. My gear is not particularly good except for my weapon. I have a very good weapon. Obviously, much better ones are out there, but at the same time, because I am an Chaos Inoculation based character, I need a lot of energy shield. So I have gloves, which instead of having like 500 energy shield, have 24. I have boots which have 45. I have really, really bad gear in some places. Pretty good gear in other places. This chest was given to me by one of the viewers. Pretty good stuff, just for testing purposes, of course. I'm using the Tricone because I need shock immunity on this character. And as you can see, I have no potions. I'm only using granite flasks because I don't need the mana. I have okay mana regen. My spells don't cost very much. I mostly use sweep, which is 38. 38 is pretty reasonable. I use the ores, I use discipline, and I use grace. So this is a pretty unusual character. This character is a demonstration of the oddities out there. Typically when you see a build, most builds are defined by efficiency. When you have very low stat, very low movement across the passive skill tree, you have a very solid build. This is the exact opposite. So with this build, I just picked up all the very far away, powerful nodes, and I literally went all over the skill tree. I'm essentially diving into every single character's skill tree with this build. See, every single slot is taken up by a little bit. And I'll just explain to you how instead of adding up a lot of efficient skills in one particular place on the skill tree, how this works by spreading out all over the place. So on the large scale, I am a Chaos Inoculation character. Instead of having life, I use Energy Shield as my life. And instead of using Life Leech, I have to use Ghost Reaver, because Life Leech will give me Energy Shield Leech. So when I leech life, I gain Energy Shield. Now the problem is, in this game, the maximum amount of life that you can steal is based on your effective health pool. If you have Chaos Inoculation, which I do, that maximum is instead applied to the Energy Shield. And the limitation is 20% of your health, or Energy Shield in my case, per second regenerated from lifesteal. That is a problem because this character tends to kill itself on reflect mobs and die in certain cases where leech does not happen fast enough. So to combat this, I use Volpact. Life Leech applies instantly, life recovery from flasks and regeneration has no effect. The downgrade of this ability doesn't really affect me at all because I don't have life, I don't use life flasks, and I have no life regeneration. The other issues with this build is that I don't have much accuracy, and if I miss, I can get killed. So I have to use Resolute Technique, so I can't miss. As a consequence, I can't crit. And the other things is Unwavering Stance. If I get stunned in the middle of a pack, I'm pretty screwed. So I have to prevent being stunned. Some people acquire this from an item. There are items in this game that prevent you from being stunned. But typically, this is a large weakness of CI-based characters because they are able to be stunned. When you take damage, that damage as a proportion to your life determines if your character is stunned or cannot use an action for a certain amount of time, which is approximately 1 second, which can be modified further by several different factors. But because you're CI-based, It uses the life you would have had if you were not CI, if you were not using Chaos Inoculation. That's a problem. That's a big problem, because with the spec, you don't get any life. There's no need to. It doesn't offer any benefit outside of this life proportional, kind of mechanic. So you have to find other ways to get around these mechanics, like stuns. The other thing is, I get Iron Reflexes, converts all evasion into armor. I've recently found out that this ability, once you convert the evasion, you can modify it further by your armor percentage and by your evasion percentage. But it doesn't work with talents that give you both, like Leather and Steel. Leather and Steel, 24% evasion and armor. Only one of those will apply to Iron Reflexes if you have that. Maybe blocked by the camera, so I'll show it there again. So Leather and Steel, 24% evasion and armor. Only once is it applied to Iron Reflexes. And additionally, I get the typical typical Templar passives with increased area of effect, and the Armor Energy Shield passives. So I have all my Energy Shield essentially from these modifiers, and the Buff Effect modifiers. The buff effect is very important because it magnifies the very crucial buffs that I use, as well as magnifying my Granite Flask, which I have so many of. So let me show you how the build works. So basically I use Grace and I use Discipline. Discipline gives me Energy Shield, Grace gives me Evasion. The Evasion is then converted into Armor, and the Armor is then modified by my Armor talents. So I have quite a bit of armor on this character. I cannot evade, and obviously I cannot block because I don't use a shield. Because I have the buff effect talent, both of these are increased by a sizable amount. The last aura, sometimes I use Hatred if I want a little bit more damage. Sometimes I use Purity if I need more resist. If I need more regen, I use Clarity. I'm planning on using Determination and Reflect maps, but that doesn't really matter. The last one is kind of the flex point. You don't really need a particular aura to make the character work. I have a few skills that I use, but primarily I use Sweep. Sweep does 2,000 damage, 2,000 DPS. But a lot of people, when they play this game, they kind of hover over the DPS. It's like, oh, 30,000, 100,000. But at a certain point, it doesn't matter. I one-shot every single mob on the screen with one cast of this ability, unless they're champion mobs, and in some cases, they die in one hit as well. And that's because it's a slow-ish attack compared to some other people's very high DPS, and it's all physical. So if mobs have like high resistances, it doesn't really matter. Physical damage, as I've said in several other videos, especially the Brutus ones, the more damage that you do compared to your armor in terms of physical damage, the less effect the armor is. This works both ways. The mobs have armor. If I do more and more physical damage, their armor is less and less effective. And this is on a per hit basis. This is not on an attack speed basis. If I did half my physical damage, but I attacked twice as often, my DPS would not be the same, because a greater proportion of my physical damage would be negated by the armor of the monsters I'm attacking. There are a few things that optimize this character greatly. So I'll leave it here on the offense tab. You can see that I have 2% lifesteal, 1% mana steal. 1% mana steal is actually a pretty good sizable chunk of my character, because I do so much physical damage that so much of it is converted into steal effects. And the reason I do so much physical damage, although I don't have that great sockets, I don't have like a 6 link or anything like crazy, I use Area of Effect, I use Sweep, and I use it with melee damage on full life, because I'm always at full life if I use Chaos Inoculation. It says 46% more melee damage, so as you know, this is a multiplier effect. This multiplies my overall physical damage by 1.46. And I use the typical melee gem, melee physical damage, which again multiplies it by 1.46. So I have an incredible amount of multipliers for physical damage, but it doesn't stop there. I also use Phase Run, and I level up Phase Run because Phase Run is also a melee multiplier. Phase Run is mostly a run skill, but because it multiplies your melee damage, and I have so much of it already, there is a lot to multiply. So when I use Phase Run, my sweep does, pretty nuts physical damage, up to like 3,500 physical. And if I want to use something like Hatred, although I don't have any elemental, weapon elemental passives, I can use Hatred, and it benefits from the 30% buff effect, giving me quite a sizable amount of cold damage as well. You know, just using hatred gives me 1,000 cold damage. My DPS for sweep is 5k, and this is, I think, averaged out to about a 4k hit. For single target, I use heavy strike, but it's really, you know, not really that big of a deal. Heavy strike is a very, very powerful melee attack, and that's the reason why I use it, because I can scale it properly with all my leech effects. And although you see 2% lifesteal, 1% mana steal, that's not it. I use an ability called Blood Rage. Blood Rage is very popular with most characters that use CI, because what Blood Rage does is it gives you frenzy charges when you kill an enemy, and it gives you lifesteal throughout the effect. As a consequence, you take a percentage of your life in chaos damage per second, every second. But because I'm immune to chaos damage, because I have chaos inoculation, this does no damage to me. So I get all the benefits. Well, I get some of the benefits. I'm never low on life. I get some of the benefits, but I get none of the negatives. But the really big part is the lifesteal. You can see that's 8% lifesteal. My Blood Rage gem, I got a new one, which is 15 quality. That's why it's a little bit low on lifesteal. I think this goes up a little bit higher. It's at 8%. So when I use Blood Rage, oh look, I just gained 10% lifesteal. That's because Blood Rage is a buff. Just like Phase Run, that's 66% more melee damage, that's multiplied by 1.3. That 8% lifesteal, that's multiplied by 1.3. When this gets higher level, and I get a little bit better gear that actually has lifesteal on it, I expect I'll have about 20, maybe a little bit more passive lifesteal on this character, which is an insane amount considering that literally all of my damage is physical damage, and I have plenty of damage to do. So when I use Blood Rage, I have that insane lifesteal, and if I find a mob, usually it's a single target mob like a boss that requires me to do this, I can use Warlord's Mark, which at my current level gives me another 7% lifesteal. So right now I can do about 19% lifesteal, and I do pretty well. Because I have so many Granite Flasks, and because Granite Flasks are also considered buffs, I gain 30% bonus base effect from a Granite Flask. So the base effect of a Granite Flask for me is 13,000 armor, and I have a lot of armor passives. I don't have any Granite Flasks of Iron Skin. These are just straightforward Granite Flasks. I use the Frozen and Chilled Dispel because I don't have any freeze immunity right now, and I'm hoping to get some in the future, but, you know, it does pretty well. My defense goes from 4.8k armor, which is essentially all granted from my Grace aura, to 31,000 armor. And because I have 5 Granite Flasks, and because I kill pretty quickly, this character has a Granite Flask uptime of 100%. So this character effectively has 31,000 armor at all times, almost 20% lifesteal if I want, at all times. And if I'm using the lifesteal, if I'm using Warlord's Mark, and I'm killing the mobs, I'm also getting endurance charges. So I'm going to be at 80 all resist, I'm going to be at 90% physical reduction, I'm going to have 20% lifesteal, I'm doing insane damage. Pretty well-rounded character. Well, this character is able to do some ridiculous maps. Now, if you guys don't know what maps are, it is one of the main parts of the endgame in Path of Exile. I have here a grotto map, and I can just show you what it does. So a grotto map, you can put in this map device, which unlocks once you complete all the quests and all the bosses in the game on all the difficulty levels. You put it in there, and it creates portals in which you do a map under your particular rules. There are a lot of maps which are fundamentally different and have fundamentally different end bosses and layouts, as well as the good stuff. How you modify the maps. The thing is, it's very hard to get maps in this game because they typically don't drop, and you have to do the lower level maps and very, very slowly get up to the higher level maps, which are going to be very, very uncommon, and you'd be very lucky to do even a few, even at the highest levels. And as such, if you want to get there, if you want to get the best maps in the game, if you want to get the best experience you can get for your character, you're going to have to do harder maps. So how do you make a map harder? Well, you take a map like this and you use the conventional items. For instance, an Orb of Transmutation upgrades a normal item to a magic item. You can use an Alchemy Orb to make it rare, but I don't have one right now, so we're just going to use this one. So in this case, area is inhibited by sea witches and their spawn. And this doesn't give it a quality bonus, but the sea witches and their spawn makes it so there's a ton more mobs in the map. And I can add another property because that's only a prefix. I added a suffix. Slithering Grotto Map of Smothering. Players recover life, mana, and energy shield 50% slower. This doesn't really affect me, and this is actually an extremely good map. And you can see that the item quantity has jumped to 30%. So what it means is, when you kill a mob in this map, you gain 30% more items from each mob that you kill, and that includes more maps, and potentially higher level maps. So that's what you need. You need to do maps, but you can set your own difficulty that makes it kind of maybe appropriate for the character that you have, and you can, try to do the map, try to do the hardest maps possible, so you can get the most, you have the best chance to get the most maps possible out of the map, to eventually do the higher and higher level maps to level your character to a higher and higher level. And, as I will show you here in a second, my character is capable of doing some of the most ridiculous maps in the game. The map that you're looking at right now, if you didn't catch it, is a 20% physical reflect, and I have a shitload of physical damage, 20% magic reflect, and players cannot regenerate life or mana. That's why I'm using the 1 mana pot, because I will run out of mana, most likely. And that's why I'm not using a third aura, because I want a higher mana buffer. I was able to do that map with this character, even though I have pretty shitty gear. It is doable, and I was actually impressed myself, because these are completely suicidal map mods that no one in their right mind would try. But considering it's, just for practice, good thing to know that we can do it. And at the end of the night, I was able to get some revenge on Brutus from Slap Me Down last week. I got killed by Brutus twice, so I thought it was appropriate to kill 2 Brutuses at the same time. Have a look, guys. I'll see you.
Alright, here we go. Okay. Double Brutus time. I don't want to fail. There's 1 Brutus. Where's the other one? Oh shit! Alright, give me a second. I have to restart. Restart. Okay, let's go. Double Brutus time. Oh, where's the other one? Where's the other one? I'm frozen. Oh shit! Down.